Hey folks, Dad here with Elevation Diecast Racing. It is time. Hot Wheels versus Matchbox, 31 to 40 weight class. This is a Redline Derby racing event. And we have got some of the fastest racers from around the world to compete. These in line here are going to be competing in the preliminary round to get into the bracket. We went through a qualifying round to determine the seeding of this bracket. And so the cars you've seen on White Lightning Raceway are going to race off to fill in the blanks. The Redline Derby rules say that the final race will be determined with the fastest lap after lane swap. That is how we'll keep it. And without any further ado, let's get into the preliminary round of this event. Wheels are centered to the best of the ability of my fat fingers. And to begin this preliminary round in lane number 1, Dutch Clutch Racing with his Hot Wheels Corvette taking on RC Addicts Hot Wheels Grand National Experimental. Here we go. Let's race. Grand National out front, 2090 to 93. 2090 is the time to beat. Good race. 2087 moving the Corvette on into the bracket. And for those of you keeping score, Dutch Clutch qualified 32nd overall. And the Buick Regal from RC Addicts qualified 33rd overall. We do have a track temperature of 70 degrees. Next up on the inside lane, qualifying 24th overall, is the Hot Wheels BMW 850i from the Zamac Speed Shop, taking on the 41st overall qualifier from Abnormal Racing. This is Abby Normal in the Matchbox El Camino. Hot Wheels versus Matchbox, rolling. 850, 285 to 19. 2085 is the time to beat. BMW 2086. Moving the Zamac Speed Shop into the bracket. Next up on the outside lane from Variant Skunk Works, qualifying 40th overall in his Matchbox Corvette, taking on the 25th overall qualifier, Sparky Racer in his Matchbox Nissan 300ZX. Nissan getting away with it, 2086 to 06. 2086 is the time to beat. And the Nissan. And Sparky Racer getting onto the board. Next up on the inside lane from 131 Racing, qualifying 29th overall in his Hot Wheels High Roller with the Joker, taking on Boggs Family Racing, qualifying 36th overall in his Hot Wheels GTO. Which Hot Wheels is getting on the board? Let's see who gets down the lane first. High Roller pulling it off, 2089 to 98. Let's switch lanes. 2089 is the time to beat. Good race, 88 to 96. And Clay over at 131 getting himself into the bracket. Next up in the blocks, from Captain K's Racing, qualifying 21st overall in his Matchbox Grand Prix, will be taking on the other entry from the Boggs Family Racing, his Matchbox BMW Wagon, qualifying 44th overall. Matchbox 2083 to 52. Boggs Family Racing needs the best, a 2083. Captain K Racing finding himself on the board. And I want to take this time to welcome the Boggs Family Racing to Elevation Diecast, as this is their first time here. So you will not be going home empty-handed. You will get an introductory welcome gift pack along back with your entries when they are mailed out. Thank you for racing. We really, really do appreciate it, and hope that you folks return to Mile High soon. And the last preliminary race on this side of the bracket is going to feature the 28th qualifier overall, the Chase Family Racing in his Hot Wheels Wildcat, taking on the 37th overall qualifier Zizzer Prime in his Matchbox Ford Probe. Here we go, Hot Wheels versus Matchbox to get onto the bracket. Ooh, Wildcat, 208.6 to 07. Ford Probe definitely needs a hero run. Good race, 208.5 to 07, moving the Chase Family Racing onto the bracket. And now to match up the right side of the board. And we'll get the preliminaries ran here and get into round one. All right, first up in the blocks for the right side of the bracket, it is 31st qualifying overall Zizzer Prime in the Shazam, taking on the Variant Skunkworks Hot Wheels F-150, qualifying 34th overall. This should be a good race. Shazam! Pulling it off, 2090 to 95. Let's switch lanes. 2090 is the time to beat. Close race again, 2091. We'll get the Zizzer Shazam on the bracket. Next two up in the blocks in the police Matchbox Dodge Charger, qualifying 23rd overall. It is Mad Mike. He'll be taking on the 42nd qualifier overall in his Hot Wheels Sweet 16. It is Bolo Brown. Hot Wheels versus Matchbox. Let's roll. Dodge Charger with a 7.9 to 119. Let's switch lanes. 2079 is the time. And the Charger running away with it with a 208.2, which ought to make Mad Mike happy. Into the bracket is the Charger. Next up in the bracket is a couple of Dodges. A Dodge and a Plymouth to be exact. From Abnormal Speed Racing, it's Abby Normal in the Hot Wheel Charger, qualifying 26th overall, taking on the Matchbox Plymouth Cuda, driven by Bolo Brown, qualifying 39th overall. Hot Wheels again versus Matchbox. Hot Wheels getting the best of this exchange, 2090 to 09. 2090 is the time to beat. And the Charger with another 2090. And Abby Normal finding their way onto the bracket. All right, next up in the blocks is the AMC Javelin from Hot Wheels. Driver is Sparky Racer, qualifying 30th overall, taking on the Zamax Speed Shop in his Mustang, custom Mustang Matchbox, qualifying 35th overall. Let's see it. Hot Wheels versus Matchbox. And Hot Wheels again getting the best of this one. 2090 is the time to beat. Wow, Javelin got him, 2093. Moving Sparky Racer onto the bracket with his second entry. Next up in the blocks, qualifying 22nd overall in his Hot Wheels Torino, it's Northern Roads Racing, taking on Kyle from the 131 Racing in his Matchbox Sierra Cosworth, qualifying 43rd overall in his Sierra. Torino 2080 to 51. We're just going to double check and make sure all the wheels are in working order. Everything seems to be in working order. 2080 is the time to beat. Ooh, looks like maybe a little sugar in the gas tank. 2083 puts Northern Roads Hot Wheel entry onto the bracket. And competing for the last spot on the bracket, we have Dutch Clutch Racing in his Matchbox Mercury Cougar, qualifying 38th overall, taking on the Matchbox GTO from the Chase Family Racing, qualifying 27th overall. We got Matchbox versus Matchbox for the last spot on the bracket. Whoo, GTO with a 2091 being the time to beat. GTO 2090, and the real GTO finds his way on the bracket for the Chase Family Racing. Looks like he's stuck in between Torinos. That is going to do it for the preliminary round of this event. we're gonna cut away from the action, clean the track, and we'll be back for round number 1 of the Hot Wheels versus Matchbox 31 to 40 weight class. And now, a word from the man. All right, we're back. If you are looking into getting into diecast racing and need to know where to get a timer, where to get a start gate, head on over to slandmancustoms.com and place your order. He has the DTS2, as you just seen. Keeps good time. And you just hook up your track and roll. And now it looks like our cleaning crews are about done. And again, I would like to thank everybody for participating in this event. We couldn't do this without you. So thank you very much, and we certainly hope you make the next mail-in race, which will be the Hot Wheels versus Matchbox 41 to 50 weight class. And that ought to be another spectacular race. And of course, your modified car will be a mobster type car. Check out redlinederby.com to see a list of the cars that you can modify for that event. Head on over to redlinederbyracing.com. So without any further ado, round number 1 is officially underway. Starting us off in the blocks, qualifying number 1 overall with the top qualifying time of 2.044. The Scale Racing Channel in his Matchbox Peugeot Quasar Laser Wheel, taking on Dutch Clutch Racing in his Hot Wheels Corvette. Let's see who gets down the lane first. 2:05.5 is the time to beat. 2:04.9. Moving the Scale Racing Channel to round number 2. Next up in the blocks, qualifying 17th overall from Poverty Hollow, it's the Matchbox Mustang, taking on the 16th qualifying overall Captain K's Racing's Hot Wheels Caddy V16. Here we go, Hot Wheels versus Matchbox rolling. Good race. Mustang 2:07.8 to 8.2. Let's switch them lanes. Captain K needs to best a 2:07.8. Can he do it? Oh, the Mustang with a 2:07.3 to 7.4. I'll have to call that an upset. That Mustang beating out the long wheel-based V16 Caddy. Poverty Hollow moving on to round number 2. Next up in the blocks, staged and ready, qualifying 9th overall in his Hot Wheels Man of Steel, it's Flips Racing. Driver is Flip, taking on the Zamax Speed Shop's 24 qualifying Hot Wheel BMW 850i. Let's see it. Man of Steel, 2:06.7 to 8.1. 2:06.7 being the time to beat. And the Man of Steel with a 2:06.4. Flips Racing going to round 2. Next up, staged and ready, qualifying 25th overall, Sparky Racer in his Matchbox Nissan 300, taking on RC Addicts Matchbox Sierra, qualifying 8th overall. Let's see who takes it down the lane first. Wow, Sierra, 2:06.5 to 8.7. 2:06.5 is the time to beat. And the Sierra with a 2:06.8. Moving RC Addicts Matchbox to round number 2. All right, next up in the blocks, we have the Hot Wheels High Roller from 131 Racing, qualifying 29th overall, taking on the number 4 qualifier from Northern Roads Racing. It's the Matchbox Quasar in the laser wheel. Wow, laser taking off 2063 to 83. Let's switch those lanes. Joker needs to beat a 2063. And the Quasar with a 62 to 82 this time. Moving Finland's greatest YouTube channel, Northern Roads, to round number 2. Next up in the blocks, we have DXP Diecast Racing, qualifying 13th overall in his Hot Wheels Mach 1, taking on Kyle from 131 Racing, qualifying 20th overall in his Hot Wheels Jackhammer. Here we go, Hot Wheels versus Hot Wheels. Who's moving on? Good race. 2078 to 80. Let's switch lanes. Jackhammer needs a 2078 or better. Mach 1 with a 73 to 77. Moving DXP to round 2. Next up in the blocks ought to be a good race. Both Matchbox qualifying 12th overall. DXP Diecast Racing's Matchbox Sierra taking on Captain K's Racing in his 21st qualifying overall Matchbox Grand Prix. Let's see who takes it down there first. Good race. Sierra, though, with a 6'9 to 7'6. Can the Grand Prix upset the Sierra? No. 71 to 81. Moving DXP's Matchbox entry on to the next round. All right, next up, staged and ready for the last race of the first round on the left side of the bracket. We have the Chase Family Racing in his Hot Wheels Wildcat, 28th overall, taking on the Matchbox Sierra, 5th overall qualifier. This is Milestone Diecast Racing. Milestone with a 2066, and that'll be the time. 2064. Moves Milestone to round 2. Heading on over to the right side, we have qualifying 2nd overall from Flips Racing. It's Flip and his Ford Sierra Matchbox taking on Zizzer Prime and his Shavam from Hot Wheels, qualifying 31st overall. 2048. Wow. Looks like Shazam better pull a miracle out of the sky. 2051 to 89. Move Flip to round number 2. Next up, staged and ready, qualifying 15th overall in this Hot Wheels Torino. It's Hot Nuts Diecast Racing taking on the Hot Wheels High Roller. Qualifying 18th overall, it's Mad Mike. Good race. 78 to 80. Does that gangster-looking High Roller take out the high-profile Torino? He needs a 2078 or better. Better than a 2078. Oh, my Lanta, did he do it? No! Oh, my Lanta, 2078 and a 10,000 speed. Man, what a race. Moving Hot Nuts to round number 2. All right, next up, staged and ready. All the way from Germany, qualifying 10th overall in his Matchbox Gruesome Twosome. It's the Bavarian Diecast Racing taking on the 23rd overall qualifier in his Charger Interceptor. It's Mad Mike. Let's see who gets down there first. Gruesome Twosome with a 6'6". Cops need to find another gear. 6'6", the time. Good race. 7-1 to 8-2. Bavarian Bomber moving on to the round number 2. Next up, staged and ready. Qualifying 7th overall in his Johnny Benson Stalker from Hot Wheels. It's Poverty Hollow Diecast Racing taking on Abby Normal in the 70 Charger, qualifying 26th overall. Good race. 74 to 89. 2074 is the time to beat. Ooh, Benson with a 6'8", moving him to round number 2. Next up, staged and ready, qualifying 3rd overall is Hot Nuts Diecast in his Matchbox Sierra, taking on Sparky Racer, qualifying 30th overall in his Hot Wheels Javelin. Hot Wheels versus Matchbox. Rolling. Sierra with a 5.6. 2056 is the time to beat. Javelin keeping up a little better this time. 63 though, moving Hot Nuts diecast to round number 2. All right, next two up in the blocks. Staged and ready from the 131 Racing. In his Matchbox Sierra, it's Clay. Qualifying 14th overall to take on the Hot Wheels ID Pace Car. 19th overall qualifier, driven by Milestone Diecast Racing. This ought to be a good race. Hot Wheels versus Matchbox. Good race. 2077, the ID putting out the Sierra. Is it going to be? 2077 is the time to beat. Oh man, 2075 and the ID Jaguar from Hot Wheels putting out the Matchbox Sierra. I can't hardly believe it. Definitely going to have to call that an upset. All right, we got a battle of the Hot Wheel Torinos. Qualifying 11th overall, Scale Racing Channel's Torino taking on the 22nd qualifying overall from Northern Roads Racing in his Torino. Northern Roads, number 3, SRC 39. Let's see who gets down the lane first. Good race. SRC with a 6.9. 2069 is the time to beat. Good race. 2071 moves the Scale Racing Torino to round number 2. And for the last race of round number 1, we have the Chase Family Racing qualifying 27th overall in his Matchbox GTO, taking on the Bavarian Diecast Hot Wheel Torino, qualifying 6th overall. Matchbox versus Hot Wheels. Torino 2069 is the time to beat. And the Torino with a 6.6 this time. Sending another Torino to round number 2 from Bavarian Diecast. That is the end of round 1, and we are going to take this time again to cut away and clean the track. We will be back for round number 2 right after this. We're back, and this is what round 2 is looking like. Round 1 is in the books. And let's see what the times are looking like in round 2 as we get underway. First up in the blocks, Scale Racing Channel and his Matchbox Quasar taking on Poverty Hollow Diecast. It's Scoop in his Mustang GT. Wow, 2057 to 84. It seems like he gets out of the block and stays out. Let's see what happens here. The Quasar, 5.6 to 7.5, moving Scale Racing to round number 3. Next up in the blocks is going to be Flip with his Superman Man of Steel taking on RC Addicts in his Ford Sierra. Good race. Superman with a 6.3 to 6.4. Let's switch lanes. Can the Man of Steel bump out another Sierra? Oh, he does. 2.062 to 6.4. What a close race. Hot Wheels wins this one. Next up in the blocks, we got Northern Roads Racing taking on DXP Diecast Racing. Hot Wheels versus Matchbox. Wow. 2061 to 6.9. Hot Wheels needs to beat a 2061. Close race. 2062 moves Northern Roads to round number 3. Next up is going to be Milestone Racing taking on DXP Diecast Racing. DXP on the near side with the number 14. And Milestone number 24. Let's see what Sierra is moving on. Good race. Wow, 61 to 71. DXP needs to rip off a 2060. Close race, 63 to 73. And Milestone Racing moving on to the next round. Here's a classic match I think we all want to see. It's Craigster Sr. in his Hot Wheels Torino taking on Flip in his Matchbox Sierra. Ford versus Ford. Hot Wheels versus Matchbox. Wow, Sierra 2050 to 69. Switching lanes. Wow, 51 to 70. Moving Flips racing to round number 3. All right, another interesting matchup. Old school Matchbox versus Hot Wheels. Let's see if Bavarian Diecast can take out Poverty Hollow's Benson Stocker. Close race. Stocker with a 2065, and that is the time to beat. Good race, 67 to 69, and Scoop moving on with the Benson Stocker. All right, next up in the blocks, another Sierra. This time by Craigster Sr. taking on the Milestone Racing's ID Jaguar. Hot Wheels versus Matchbox. Can Hot Wheels put out another Sierra? Let's find out. Oh my, this Sierra got a 5.9. That's one fast Jag nevertheless. Let's see what happens. Good race. 58 to 70, sending Craigster Sr. to round number 3. All right, another classic matchup. It is Bavarian Diecast Racing in his Torino on the inside lane, and Bavarian Diecast Racing with his Torino on the outside lane. A little European smash up here. Good race. 62 to 5. Bavarian now on the inside with the advantage. 2062 the time. And Bavarian Diecast moving himself to round 3. And that's my mistake. That was Scale Racing Channel, who was eliminated. Northern Roads was eliminated in round 1. Pretty easy to get these guys confused. And here's what the semis look like. Or the quarters. Starting to see a theme here. Matchbox seem to be dominating this race. And there are 3 Hot Wheels that would like to play spoiler to Matchbox. First of which being the Man of Steel from Flips Racing, taking on the Quasar from Scale Racing Channel. Good race, 51 to 59. 2051 is the time to beat. Good race, 47. Wazoo. What a good time moving the Scale Racing to the semis. Who'll join them? Will it be Milestone Racing in his Sierra? Or will it be Northern Roads in his Quasar? Let's see who takes it down the lane first. Good race. 2060 and the 10,000s beat Milestone up. 2060 is the time to beat. What a race. 2060. And a bigger beat. 2060 moving Milestone Racing to the semifinal round. All right, next up it's Scoop from Poverty Hollow and his Benson Stocker taking on Flip with his Sierra. Who gets down the lane first? Wow, Sierra with a 4.9. Can Hot Wheels play spoiler? 49 the time. Not today. 51 to 60. Moving Flip to the final or semifinal round. Well, if nothing else, fastest Hot Wheels of the tournament goes to Bavarian Diecast Racing. It's Hot Wheels' last stand against Matchbox in this one. It's Bavarian Diecast in his Ford Torino taking on Craigster Sr. in his Ford Sierra. Good race, 57 to 60. 2:05.7 by Crickster Sr. is the time Bavarian needs to beat in that Torino. Close, but not close enough. And Crickster Sr. finds himself in the semifinals. And there it is. Matchbox dominating the 31-40 weight class in this one. All right, here we go with the semifinals. Staged and ready. Scale Racing Channel on the inside. Milestone Racing on the outside. Matchbox versus Matchbox. Good race. 53-57. 2:05.3 is the time to beat. Close race. 52-58. Scale Racing going to the final race. All right, and then another Battle of the Sierras here. Will it be Crickster Sr. in his laser wheel or Flip in his Starburst? Nice and quiet. Starburst winning out this one, 47-55. 2:04.7 is the time to beat. 50-54, and Flip moving on to see Scale Racing Channel in the final race. All right, here is the race for third place. Crickster Sr. taking on Milestone Racing. Laser wheel versus Starburst. Let's see who gets down the lane first. Good race, 57-58. The Milestone Starburst with the advantage. 2:05.7 is the time to beat. 2:05.4-5.8 will put Crickster Sr. third, Milestone fourth. And to determine fifth place, we're going to take the right side of the bracket and the left side of the bracket, race them off, and then race them off, and that will determine fifth place. So here we got Northern Roads Racing in his Matchbox and Flips Racing in his Hot Wheels. Good race, 59-60. 2:05.9 is the time Superman needs to beat. Won't get it done. Northern Roads will meet the winner of Poverty Hollow and Bavarian Diecast. Two Hot Wheels duking it out. Hot Wheels determined to be mentioned on Redline Derby, and it is the Torino with a 2:06.6, the time to beat. 2:06.3, oh my Atlanta! Scoop with his Benson Stalker moving for the fight for fifth. Hot Wheels versus Matchbox for fifth place overall in this one. Poverty Hollow in his Hot Wheels and Northern Roads Racing in his Matchbox. 63-7. Hot Wheels last stitch hanging by a thread effort. 2:06.3 is the time. 2:06.3-65. Oh, my Atlanta in a 2:06.3 and a 6.7. A bigger beat is going to give it a fifth place win to Northern Roads. And now the moment we've all been waiting for, the final race. It is Flips Racing in his Ford Sierra taking on the Scale Racing Channel in his Peugeot Quasar Laserdisc. Matchbox versus Matchbox dominating this event. First racer to cross the line fastest after lane swaps will be determined your overall winner for this event. Let's see who gets down the lane first. What a race, 48-49. Advantage is the Scale Racing Channel. Can Flip take him out with his Sierra? 2:04.8 is the time to beat. 2:04.6. Oh, my Atlanta, son. And Flip, the Ford Sierra, pulls it out. Oh, my Atlanta. Talk about some Kung Pao chicken. Woo. Wow, it does not get any closer than that. Oh, my Atlanta. First place, Flips Racing with his Sierra Cosworth. Second place goes to the Scale Racing Channel and his Peugeot Quasar laser wheel. And third place going to the laser wheel Sierra by Craigster Sr. at Hot Nuts Diecast Racing. Congratulations. What an epic race this has been. And let's not forget our 4th and 5th place Milestone Racing and 5th place Northern Roads. I will be recording these on Redline Derby, and so be looking out for that. What an amazing event this was. Thank you to everybody who participated in this one. The next video you'll see from Elevation Diecast is going to be qualifying for the modified portion of this race, which was the Turbo Tram, and in that same video will be the actual race. Because there's only 8 cars, we're just going to run it all in one, and then from there we'll move on to the gift car races, and we'll be running along with that. Thanks again, and remember, from all of us over here at Elevation Diecast Racing, if your car isn't fast, well, at least it'll look good on the shelf. See ya.